welcome to the Disneyville podcast, episode 7.
Yes, we are doing it. We are so excited about this episode topic. Today we're talking about the value resorts at Disney World, and it is one of the most asked about topics when it comes to like planning a Disney trip, etc. You know, should we stay there? Should we stay at a moderate, deluxe, etc.? Which one's your favorite? So we are deep diving, baby. I was looking at photos of pools at each one online to make sure I knew which one was which, because for us, it's been a few years since we've stayed at like one of the All-Stars, for example. We've more recently stayed at Pop Century and Art of Animation. So we've got a lot to share.
Yes, we do. I feel like, also, I'm Tyler. This is Jessica.
Oh, man, I knew we'd forget.
We are your hosts here for the Disneyville podcast.
That's right.
Today, we're yellow. It's so yellow.
So yellow.
Just changing the colors each episode, just for funsies.
Well, that's for those that can see it.
Yeah, for those that can see it. On the YouTube, we changed the
For those that can only hear it, this is for you. I couldn't even do that with a straight face.
Perfect.
That was me sipping my coffee.
We're starting off strong today. We're obviously excited about the hotels. Yeah. I always joked that I go to Walt Disney World to stay at the resorts, and then the parks are like an afterthought, because like the resorts are so incredible. I could go to Walt Disney World for a week and just explore the resorts and not even go into the parks.
I totally feel that. Like, think about it. Even in our like outside of Disney life, we'll go to like a really cool hotel or something that's more resort. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, it's like Disney, where you don't even want to leave the hotel. It's so fun. So, yeah. And I definitely feel like the value resorts have a lot going for them, that even though they are less expensive, they still are really cool. They're still Disney resorts. So yeah, we got a lot to say. So there were some updates that came out.
Yes.
Which is exciting, right? Most of this is good news.
Right. So our original plan for this week, we keep changing what we're going to do until like the day of.
You know what, guys? You're just going to always be surprised.
Just do what Crush says. Go with the flow. But originally we were going to do Walt Disney World 101. That was our plan. And then like 3 days ago, everything changed. And so now we're doing the resorts. And there's still stuff that obviously affects a lot of that, but we're not going to get into it too much. But just a quick, dining plans are coming back. So that's going to be huge. Not till next year, but those are coming back. Park reservations are effectively being eliminated for most guests, unless you're an annual pass holder or cast member or whatever. What else? They announced that the Genie Plus is going to be, you're going to be able to start doing it before you go. They didn't really give us any details on
Which
that
is huge.
yet.
If you've woken up at 7 a.m. on those long Disney trips where you're like, I'm so tired, and you're having to get up at 7 a.m. to book them. Oh my gosh.
Well, and one of the chief complaints about it has been, I mean, aside from it costing, I mean, that's so many theme parks across the country, and they have paid lightning lanes, paid fast pass, whatever they call them. But so that wasn't that surprising. But so many people complain. They're like, I am on my phone all day at the parks. They're like, I want to be in the parks with my family. We spent so much money to be here. Like, we wanted to enjoy the time, and they were constantly looking at their phone. Like, we do that at home anyway. So let's
I'm tired of looking at my phone.
Yeah. So that, I think, hopefully, they haven't really given us any details yet. So hopefully that'll be really good news.
But some of that affects like which type of resort you might want to stay at based on this dining plan thing. But because that information is so new and not all of it's going into effect right now, we didn't really feel like traversing those waters right this second. So we're going to touch on all of the other stuff. One big question we got a lot that we will touch on in this episode later is, why stay on property versus off property? We certainly will do an entire episode on this in the future. Yeah. We will touch on that. So shall we make a start?
Yes. So I think our basic plan here. So, also they announced that the 2024 rates are coming out. So you can start booking 2024 trips.
Which is very exciting.
On May 31st of 2023. You can start booking next year. So if you're interested, contact People Mover Travel. They can help you. It's free. They can help you with all of your planning needs. And especially those first few days, it gets so crazy on the phones and on the websites and everything, because everybody's trying to book at once. So fill out a quote request now to work with a travel agent for free, so you're not having to sit there for 3 hours while the spaceship Earth, Space Mountain just circles and whatever and all that. So anyway, have your travel agent do it for you. That's my.
We are super biased. A little plug that Tyler does own this travel agency, but it is amazing, and they really do it all for you.
Yeah, and it's all free. So let's start. I think our basic plan is to kind of go through each value resort first. Then we're going to kind of talk about some questions that you guys have asked. We're going to talk about some of the things that you guys have talked about, like your favorite stories and stuff like that.
And share ours too.
Yeah, and share ours. And then that'll be it. So that's sort of our basic overview here.
We had to really organize this one because it's almost overwhelming. So starting at the top, there are, in theory, 5 value resorts. some people count a sixth one being the campgrounds at Fort Wilderness. That's kind of like, yeah, I guess, but
it's its own category.
Yeah, and even within that, there's different. So we're not really going to talk about that today. But the 5 of them are the All-Star Resorts. There are 3. There's All-Star Movies, All-Star Music, All-Star Sports. Then there is Pop Century and Art of Animation. So one thing I think that's important to know is like where you are in space and time is that the All-Star Resorts are all right next to each other. So they share a bus line. There's 3 separate bus stops at each one, but they do share a bus route.
Not always, though. So that's one important thing.
When it's super busy.
It's when it's super busy and stuff like that. So because that's one of the chief complaints about the All-Stars is that they share buses, but it's not super duper often that they share buses. It's if it's, like peak times and stuff like that. But just
if it's peak times, they would have separate ones because there's too many people on each one. That's what I'm
saying.
Sorry,
that's what I mean. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I figured that's what you meant. Yeah.
But that's just one big complaint about the All-Stars is the buses. The other 2 do not share buses.
Right. And the other thing to know is Art of Animation and Pop Century they are right next to each other as well. And they have this cute little bridge, and I guess we could talk about it now. They have this bridge that connects them called the Generation Gap Bridge, which is really cute because Pop Century was built and opened before Art of Animation was. And if you know a little bit of the background, and I'll let Tyler take this over in a sec, Pop Century was opened, and then was it 9/11 occurred? And so pretty much everything was halted, and they were building basically all of the decades. So right now, Pop Century is like 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, something like that.
It's 40s through the 80s, I think. Or 20s through the...
No. It's less than that because the other side of it was going to be the like 20s, 30s, 40s, all the different decades.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, that's basically it. So we used to go to Pop Century, and you could see the half-finished buildings
across the water.
Yeah, across Hourglass Lake.
And they just sat there for years. So finally, Disney decided to build a just new resort, scrap the other half of Pop Century idea, basically, and build that. And that is what became Art of Animation. So you can look online and see pictures of just like what we saw 12 years ago, whatever, where it was just sitting there dilapidated and half built. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of cool.
But
I love it.
The rooms that were already half built ended up turning into the Little Mermaid rooms at Art of Animation. So those are the standard rooms that very much match the rooms over at Pop Century and elsewhere. They don't aesthetically inside match because they haven't really been updated. They had a little bit of an update. Yeah. We're kind of all over the map here. We got a lot we're talking about. But then they ended up building new buildings for the family suites at Art of Animation.
Yeah. So I just think that little tidbit is fascinating. But let's dive into each resort on its own and kind of talk about each one. And then we will share our personal fave, the one we recommend.
So do we want to start with, let's just start with All-Star Sports. Why not?
We have not stayed in this one. It's the only one.
This is the one we haven't stayed in. Exactly, yeah.
But it's funny because neither of us are really into sports, so it kind of makes perfect sense. We just never have. But it's also the only one that is still being renovated out of the All-Stars. So movies is done, music is done, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So all the rooms you're booking there are renovated, and sports, it sounds like...
I think sports is done. If not, it's
close to. So now when you're booking a room there, it should be a renovated one. Which it needed it.
Yes, they do. And again, now it's funny looking at the old ones versus the new ones. They did such a good job.
Yeah.
And again, overall, the value resorts are clean. They're well maintained. They're really, really nice hotels, and they do offer the on-site booking benefits that you get, which more are coming back now. So for a long time, it was really easy to say it's definitely worth it to stay on property, even in a value resort for X, Y, and Z. Well, Y and Z went away for a while, but it sounds like they're coming back.
Y and Z is back, baby. Yeah. It is back.
Yeah. So it's but I just love the value resorts. There's something, I think I kind of look at them with a little bit of rose-colored glasses because we stayed there so often, especially when we first started going, that when I think about like our early trips, and I have so many happy memories of when you and I started dating and we were going to Disney a lot, that it just makes me so happy. And I think about one of my favorite memories is walking through, I think it was Pop Century, but early morning, we were getting up, going to the parks early. You were staying in the room getting ready, and I just had my coffee cup, and I went to go fill our resort mugs up at the main building, and just walking through and just being so happy to be there. And it was warm outside, and it was just, the sun was coming up, and it was just my like absolute favorite. It was so quiet just to walk through. I talk about that a lot.
You do, but it's really endearing because that was like a core
Yeah.
You were building a core memory
Yeah.
then. It's so sweet.
But it makes me so happy. And so even now when I step foot on any of the value resorts, I'm so happy. And I'm so happy they've renovated them, because I sort of had that for a long time, the nostalgia built in. So I liked them regardless. But now I think even if you are a non-Disney person, you're still going to really like them now, you know, because now they've got all the modern amenities, I mean, even things like USB plugs and little things that we all as travelers expect now, you're going to get in these, and they're clean and they're relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
They're
very
great
nice.
value.
Like I think when people hear value, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to stay in those because those are the cheapest. And if I can afford the next level up, but they really are. Like I said, they're still a Disney resort. They are wildly well maintained. They are very clean. And we'll talk about a lot of the things they do have that are really cool. So continue with the All-Stars, obviously transportation wise, bus only. We already touched on that. I did get some questions that are the lines longer there for the buses? I think that just depends on when you're waiting in line, but I think that's true at a lot of other hotels too. If you're staying at a hotel that has a lot of rooms, and I know, Tyler, you had typed in here
so
the number of rooms. So
All-Star Sports.
Wow.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? So All-Star Sports has 1,920 rooms. And also, I only verified these on one website, so these could be slightly off. I did not do my due diligence.
They're probably ballpark close.
All-Star Movies has 1,604 rooms. All-Star Music has 1,706 rooms.
So sports has the most rooms.
Right. Well, I think partly that's because a lot of sports teams actually go and stay there if they're doing something at the ESPN Wide World of Sports. So a lot of times you're going to get teams of, you know, young kids there and that kind of stuff in their families. So I think that's part of the reason they probably have some extra rooms. But that's a big part of, not only are we not big sports fans, but I think that's part of the reason we've never stayed there. Because as far as crowds go, there's going to be typically, more often than not, there's going to be larger groups of young kids there that are going to be a little bit louder, a little bit more rowdy, that you don't see necessarily at the other values.
Yeah. So then, just to fill you in, if you were curious comparing them, Art of Animation has 1,984, so a little bit more than sports, with like 1,100 of them being family suites and 864 being Little Mermaid. And then Pop Century takes it all with 2,880 rooms. Wow.
Isn't that wild?
So, you'd think those lines would be the longest, and in theory they would be, but I don't remember it ever being a thing. The only time I remember there being crazy long lines is if you're really trying to get there right around opening time to like Magic Kingdom or Epcot. Everyone would be trying to get there, so that would be the time that the line would be the longest. Yeah,
well, and again, factoring in things we haven't really talked about yet. I feel like we're a little all over the place. We should have written down our notes a little bit better.
These are thorough notes.
No, they're thorough.
Are they in order? No.
They are not in order, though. But with the Skyliner, that also affects things a little bit, because if you are staying at Pop Century and you are not somebody who wants to ride the Skyliner, whether it's something you're terrified of heights or you don't like, you know, whatever, or maybe it's, you know, there's a million reasons that you maybe not want to ride the Skyliner, and you have to wait on buses. They still do have buses, but those bus times to Hollywood Studios and Epcot are dramatically, or the number of buses has been dramatically reduced. So
because they have the Skyliner.
So you might be waiting longer now at Pop Century or Art of Animation for those buses,
the Skyliner
over All-Stars.
I got what you're saying. So back to All-Stars. Where are we? So they have 2 pools at each one. Each one has 2 pools. And I want to point out that one of the best pools is the one at Movies that has Fantasia. Like, it's got Sorcerer Mickey, and there's water, like he's shooting it out. And there's like, he's like on a little stage thing. And then it's got like the big brooms with the water buckets next to him. It's so Disney magical. It is so, so cool. And you know what? There's something about swimming in those kinds of pools at night that just feels even more magical. You've been in the park sweating all day. I didn't bring up sweat last episode. Only one person pointed it out. It's like, oh man. And there we go. Yeah. So you've been sweating all day, but you get in that pool and at the end of the evening and you're like going to order pizza to your room or like get pizza and bring it. That's another thing. They used to, and I wonder if they'll eventually bring it back. They used to do pizza delivery at the All-Stars, and I want to say at Pop and Art as well. But I think it's still suspended, but you could go pick it up and bring it back to the room, which we have certainly done recently.
And you just get a whole pizza and bring it back to the room.
The best.
So, okay, a couple things I wanted to point out before we delve into a little bit more as far as value resorts as a category overall. So, the value resorts, as far as theming goes, are going to be way more themed than the other resorts. So the moderates and the deluxes are a lot more what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's kind of like they're a lot more
subtle in their decor. It's sort of a they transport you to wherever it is that they're talking about. Whereas these are a lot of oversized statues. They're and decades icons and all this kind of stuff that kids are gonna love. But I also personally love. Of course. And so having that sort of these huge, way over the top, but it's so Disney to me that I feel like I sometimes miss it when we stay at the other resorts.
Other ones, yeah.
Because it's so ingrained in me. The first half the time we were together, we always stayed at these value resorts. And so there's so much nostalgia to me in this giant theming that I feel like in some ways I kind of miss in the other resorts. So that's part of it. It's way over-themed in all the right ways.
Very in your face, but like we said, in a fun way.
Yeah. And especially if you're a young kid going to Disney, having this giant statue of Mickey holding a phone or doing any of these things are going to be so magical and memorable to younger kids that it's huge. The other thing is, as far as comparing it to other categories, the value resorts, square footage wise, for the most part, are around 260 square feet. Versus looking at something like a moderate resort, which is going to be around 330, 350. And then once you get into the deluxe resorts, anywhere from 350 to 450, just kind of depending on how big. So the room sizes themselves get bigger as you go to the higher end resorts. There's also going to be some small things as far as the amenities that are in the room. So most of the value resorts are going to have one sink versus a lot of the moderates and deluxes are going to have two sinks. You might have a curtain that kind of closes off that sink area versus having an actual door. What else? You might have a ceiling fan, things that you're not going to get in these value resorts, but you're going to get, again, these clean, well-maintained, very nice rooms.
Right. And another thing they do have are the smaller beverage coolers in each room, which I feel like that is really nice. They don't have microwaves in the room. They do have coffee makers though, and that used to be a huge discrepancy where moderate ones had the coffee maker and the value ones didn't. Now they do, which is very exciting because, come on. Come on.
Yeah. Although, then what am I supposed to do with my morning coffee walk?
You do both, babe, because
I usually do.
The emergency coffee is the first one that we make when we're first getting up, and then you go get the other one. Yeah. That's the better tasting coffee.
That was funny because when we stayed there, we stayed at Pop Century 2 years ago for my birthday, and it was so fun because we literally would get up, we'd have our coffee like with a little coffee maker.
The emergency coffee.
Yeah, the emergency coffee first thing, and then I would walk up to the thing, and I'd already had a cup of coffee by then, but still had my morning coffee walk.
See, there you go. You get both. So we'll get in. There's so much. All right. So continuing on, they all have playgrounds as well, which is huge. Because again, if you've got especially younger kids that just need to get their wiggles out, like they can be out and riding rides and stuff, but to be able to like be on a playground where they're just playing, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's really nice to have. I did not appreciate that enough when Gigi was even younger, and now I'm like, oh wow, no, it's really nice to have these. So all of them have that. Another thing you're not gonna find at the value resorts is hot tubs.
Oh, that's true.
They don't have them. I know they don't have them at any of them. Now that might not be important to a lot of you guys, but if it is, especially if you're like, we had a long day walking, I would love to get in a hot tub. That's not something you're gonna find there.
Yeah, we had at the agency a lot of honeymoon couples that would stay at Pop Century. So if you're going, as an adult group, or it's your honeymoon or anything like that, where you don't have kids that are you're staying there, then that might be something more of a factor.
Yeah, you might be like, ooh, we actually do want the hot tub. So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So moving into the idea of a family suite. So I learned something new when prepping for this show, or this episode, I should say. I always knew that Art of Animation had family suites. We have stayed in one. We'll talk about that in a minute. I did not realize that All Star Music, I know you knew this, had family suites. And what they did is they took two standard rooms, took the connecting door, and just created a suite out of that. And what is so smart, one of the rooms kind of looks like a standard room with the two beds and all that. And then the other side of the room has, or the other, the other room that's connected has a couch that has the pull down bed that Disney's been putting in all their hotels that are renovated. That is amazing. And a table with 4 chairs. It's got a little kitchenette with a microwave, a fridge, or a beverage cooler. Absolutely a genius way to be able to have like larger families-ish stay and have that separate space. So you could have the kids sleeping in the other room, and you yourself could sleep in the room with the one bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they're
shut the door.
significantly less expensive than the Art of Animation family suites.
Which is interesting because these, I think I might prefer. We're going to get into my feelings on the family suites over at Art of Animation.
Yeah. It's funny because when I started out as an agent, these were already existed. So I kind of knew they were there. I mean, I've had clients stay there, but I didn't realize that they had taken 2 rooms and converted them into family suites. I thought they were just, I figured they'd always been there. So that's something I just learned today too.
Yeah, I find it just fascinating. And it does say, and this is from, I want to say touringplans.com that I kind of pulled some of this info. It said the suites cost about 25% less than the cabins. I love the cabins at Fort Wilderness. And about 20% less than the Art of Animation ones. Yeah. And I'm sure, obviously, that fluctuates. But that is something new that if you were, like I said, if you were wanting more of a villa experience, being able to shut the world away, as in let your kids sleep in one room while you have a glass of wine in the other and have some adult time, Anyway. So one distinction is, there's the All-Star Resort, but there's the 3 separate ones. Sports we talked about. Music is the one that has the family suites, and then movies. The music one, with like each little clump of rooms, each building, they have different genres of music, if you will. So there's like the one that has like maracas and all kinds of stuff. I think they have a jazz area.
They have a Broadway area.
Yup, favorite.
Loved that, of course.
And then movies, of course, all of it is themed around Disney movies. So they've got all kinds of
I believe
giant
you're referring
statues.
to it's all themed around the Mighty Ducks.
Sports.
Is that sports? I thought movies was Mighty Ducks.
What?
I think it is. It's a little out of date, but pretty sure that's at movies because it was where we stayed.
What?
Yeah.
Oof, that is dated, you guys.
Yeah.
Why do I not remember that?
But
there's the Fantasia.
They do a good job of keeping these giant icons, freshly painted. They look nice, they're clean, but they are, as far as like the up to date theming, is a little hit or miss.
I need to see this with my own eyes because this just sounds. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember that.
The hockey masks and the
yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not like the entire thing. It's just like one building. That's so
right. Just one
interesting.
clump area.
Yeah. So popping in here, thinking about the values, all of them have a large lobby that you go to the desks, and there's usually plenty of desks. There's the bell stand, etc. And then it'll spill into where they have the giant food court area. All of them have a food court vibe. Mm-hmm. And then usually within that, maybe like near the entrance, they have the like gift shop, which is always so fun. It's always the most like fun and magical stuff in those gift shops. Mm-hmm. That's some of my favorite memories are going to the food court at like Pop Century or All Star Movies or wherever. Mm-hmm. And just eating a quick breakfast before catching the bus to the parks. And
getting our bounty platter. That was always our
a bounty
go-to.
platter. Mickey waffle, eggs, what you want. We'll throw it all on there.
Yeah, it was
we'll
such
charge
a good
you
deal.
for it too, though.
It was a good deal, though.
Well, in Disney standards, I agree. Yeah. But yeah, all of them are set up that way. And I feel like one thing, if you were thinking about value versus moderate, is because they don't have a sit-down restaurant in any of them, that may be something that turns people away from it. I don't miss it because you can go to other hotels for the restaurants. You could be eating in the parks. Like, there are so many options elsewhere that it's kind of nice when you're at your hotel to just be able to pop over and do a mobile order for a hamburger because it's 10 p.m. and you're starving and you didn't get an actual dinner that night.
And so many people, they don't stop and actually eat at table service restaurants because they're go. So having that quick service option there is awesome. Mm-hmm. But for so many people, they're not going to sit down for an hour and a half and eat a dinner. They're more spending time in the parks and stuff. So
exactly.
At least they have the food courts there for a quick grab and go breakfast, or if you're going to sit down for a few minutes.
Lunch at the pool.
Yeah.
Dinner, etc. So yeah, I actually really like the food court vibe. It doesn't bother me.
No, I like it.
Yeah, I do too.
And I feel like the food has gotten better over the years. I mean, not that it was ever terrible, but I do think it has gotten better in
it's just kind of all evened out. Like, I feel like the food you get there tastes the same as a lot of quick services in the parks. So it doesn't feel like it's that different, which could be good or bad, but I feel like it's just kind of on par with.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Pop Century. Shall we?
We shall. So, Pop Century. Well, I shouldn't give it away yet. I love Pop Century. It has so much going for it. It was one of the first ones to have the renovated rooms.
And the renovated rooms are really nice.
So nice. They've done such a good job. Like I said, they're so much more modern. The one complaint I heard some people talking about is that they are a little bit more sterile. They look like hotel rooms anywhere, which I don't necessarily agree with, because any hotel you're going to stay in, most of them are going to have the Murphy beds. Most of them are going to have Mickey over the bed and that kind of stuff.
And they have like Pop Century. They have pop art on the walls. So it's not of, like you said, Mickey heads. It's not. But
they replaced the carpet with hardwoods, and they've done that in a lot of things. And that
10
is
out of 10.
so smart. And then having these pull-down beds, we're not supposed to call them Murphy beds, because I think that's a trademark term. So they're pull-down beds that are part of the table too. So you can kind of put it up. You can have spot to sit and eat or work or whatever, and then have the bed pull down. It's just so smart. It is such a smart. And they do have rooms with double-sized beds, 2 doubles, or kings.
So is it only the king rooms where it would pull down and go up? Because the 2 queens...
No, with the 2 queens, one of them goes up. And one stays down. The king, I think it just stays down. But it has a little table in there as well.
But yeah, that is a game changer, because if any time in those rooms, since they are smaller, you can get a little bit more room when you're just going about your day or popping back. You know, that's nice.
Popping back.
Oh my gosh.
But the biggest game changer when it comes to Pop Century is the Skyliner.
So the Skyliner goes to 2 parks, Hollywood Studios and Epcot. And that is a pretty big deal, because it's fast, it's enjoyable. If you have a stroller, you can roll it right on there. You don't have to, you're usually not waiting in a line. Like maybe in the morning when park open, but even that, the line goes fast.
Yeah, because it's an omnimover. It's just constantly moving. So unless, it does shut down if it's storming or something bad like that. So that is one thing to kind of factor in. But usually if it's shut down, they're going to increase the buses. So you're kind of back to that, that normal bus schedule at that point. But it is so fast. It's about, from Pop Century and Art of Animation, it's probably like 10 minutes to get to Hollywood Studios, and maybe 15 to get to Epcot, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's, as soon as you get there, you're hopping on. So it's not like you have to, it's that time plus 10 minutes waiting for the bus. It's just takes you right there. It is so nice.
It's so nice. And I just had an idea pop in my head. And we've done this before, I think, but one huge benefit of staying at a Skyliner resort like Pop Century and Art of Animation is, if you did want to go do a sit-down breakfast or dinner at one of the Skyliner resorts, like Riviera's on the Skyliner, Caribbean Beach is on the Skyliner, you could just skyline there, have your dinner or your breakfast, and skyline back, and you're not dealing with the buses. Again, I'm always thinking about strollers. You don't have to break down the stroller. So it's nice to have that option where you really could just go do a quick.
Yeah. Well, and the whole boardwalk area and the Yacht and Beach Club technically are not on the Skyliner, but they definitely are, because they're right there at the entrance to Epcot. So even though they're not technically Skyliner resorts, they definitely are. So that expands the amount of restaurants you have as well.
Yeah. We're hoping to stay somewhere on the boardwalk, maybe around Christmas-ish time. Yeah. So we'll test that theory. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So there are 3 pools at Pop Century. Yes. I feel like they're all nice. None of them are wildly remarkable, but they're all fine. I mean, again, all of the Disney pools, there's usually a quiet pool or 2. There's usually the main pool that's a little louder. So if you're staying at like in a room that's right there, you'll probably hear some of the noise. But that central area where the main pool is there isn't Art of Animation right across. Well, I know it's right across. Right. Isn't their main pool right there too? So they're kind of, because again, they're kind of mirror images of each other. And
if you, for any reason, if you were staying at Pop Century and you wanted to go eat at Landscape of Flavors over at Art of Animation, it's a quick walk over there. So I mean, you're kind of staying at both resorts by staying at one. Kind of like Yacht and Beach Club. They are 2 separate resorts, but they're really just kind of one big resort. Or the Port Orleans, they're right there. Even though they're 2 separate resorts, they're really pretty close. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention is that there's a really nice running trail that basically you would be using the Pop Century area and the Art of Animation. You can run around, what is it called? Hourglass Lake, which is the water that Generation Gap Bridge is going over. There's a really nice running trail there, and they have like signs and maps that show you where it is. And we've both done that run, and it's just pleasant. And you're going under the Skyliner for part of it. Like it's actually a really cool run. Yeah, I don't think it's a mile around, so it's just under a mile if I remember right. I'll have to look that up. Around. It's pretty quick to run around if you do maybe a couple. Even just a walk, as if you haven't walked enough in the parks. But in case you wanted to walk more. All right, moving on to Art of Animation. Yep. Let's not get into our stories yet. Let's just give a brief overview. So the difference, the biggest difference between the other value resorts and Art of Animation are the family suites. So again, kind of like we talked about, they built these later because they saw there was a need for Art of Animation or for family suites, and so they use Art of Animation for that. Now, I kind of think we just talk about the Little Mermaid rooms because those are the only comparable ones as far as the amenities and all that.
Yeah.
Because the family suites are very expensive for what they are. And so
depending
they
on when you
almost
book
don't
it,
even
yeah.
fit in the value category, I feel like.
They're definitely price-wise definitely closer to moderate, if not
more than moderate.
Into moderate pricing, yeah.
And so they're almost in their own category, sort of like the cabins at they're more akin to the cabins at Fort Wilderness than they are other value rooms.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of unfair to include them in this, but
but if you're curious,
so the difference is they have 2 rooms, they have 2 bathrooms, but they have interior hallways leading into them. So that's a big difference between the other values where they're all sort of these, squat little buildings that have been painted these bright colors, and they all have exterior decorations and all that kind of stuff, but they have exterior entrances. These are different in the fact they have interior entrances to the rooms.
Yeah. So the theming at Art of Animation is so wildly, awesomely in your face. Like the Little Mermaid rooms are Little Mermaid rooms, and I absolutely love that. This is like, think about it. This is a 90s kids, so are the All-Star ones, but this is like a 90s kids dream because it is just, there's like 4 themed areas. It's Cars, Lion King,
Finding Nemo.
So 90s and 2000s kids. Okay. But it's just so amazing. The theming is so much fun, especially if you have a kid that's like really into one of those things, like getting a room in that area would just blow their mind.
And when it comes to booking them, you can actually book a specific area. The Finding Nemo rooms are a little bit more expensive because those are in what other resorts would be called like their preferred rooms because they're right there.
By the lobby and stuff.
Yeah, they're closest to the Skyliner, they're closest to the main lobby, they're closest to the big pool. But the other ones are a little bit less expensive, but you can select it, or you can just select Family Suite, and then they'll just decide where to put you, and you can save a little bit of money that way. But I think the Cars area is the best. It is so... It's almost like Cars Land in Disneyland, like a very miniature version of it, but it's so good.
It's so cool.
Because the other ones have like the big crush and the big statues, but it actually feels like you are in Radiator Springs. It's
baby.
So cool.
It really is cool. So I feel like theming for Art of Animation is just a 10 out of 10 for me. The pool... So first of all,
the big blue pool.
Yeah. So they have 3 pools, and the largest one on Disney World property is the big blue pool there. And they used to have music underwater.
I know. I never got to experience it because when we went the first time, it was like down for maintenance, and then when we went the second time, it was just gone.
He said, "Yeah, we tried to fix it. We couldn't figure it out."
Yeah. But
Joe in maintenance quit, and he was the only one that knew.
But I was so sad I never got to experience it. I think other hotels have done that too, but I never got to experience the underwater music. I was so sad.
You couldn't have been able to hear it well, right? Any of you guys actually gotten to hear it? I feel like I remembered going underwater and kind of hearing it, but I may have just been like in my head, like, yeah, I think I hear it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So, continuing on with the Art of Animation.
Our camera overheated, so if we were in the middle of a sentence, then that's why this is a weird transition.
So, the family suites at Art of Animation we stayed at when Gigi was 1 and 1.5. I don't know. The rooms themselves, bang for your buck, it's a lot of space. Like it is so cool that you've got a separate bedroom with its own bathroom, right? Then you have a pull down bed in the main area and a separate couch and TV area with a little kitchenette and another full bathroom. It's insane. So it is pricier. And that's why we were talking about, like, is it really value? It still is, and it's still at a value resort, but it is pricier, but it's not nearly as expensive generally than as, like, the villas at other deluxe, resorts. Yeah. But my complaint, and this is my only complaint because I genuinely think the room is so cool, is that the flooring they chose, it's kind of like painted concrete, if you will.
I thought it was like little squares, like
it might be. It
squares.
Felt like a hospital. And it colored that whole bit of that trip because I think we'd done a split stay. And I can't explain, like, I'm like, why is this bothering me? Like, it shouldn't. But I think for the price that room is, I feel like they should have done, like, the fake wood flooring they did in, like, the Pop Century renovated rooms. It would have instantly felt so much nicer. And the kitchenette little area, too, kind of felt hospital-y. Like, the way it felt like they finished those buildings on the cheap.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can explain it. But again, talking about space and like the beds are still comfortable. It's really nice having the extra. But that was the only thing it's always the first thing I think about when I think about those family suites there.
The like Formica countertops and stuff like that. It makes me think of a break room. Like when I used to work for Stanley Black & Decker, I used to eat in the break room, and it kind of made me feel like that, like a very industrial kind of feeling.
Industrial, that's a good, So again, still amazing. I'm not knocking it because I genuinely think that room type is so cool. I just would change a few things. That's all.
Yeah. And if you're splitting it, especially if you're doing like maybe an adults trip or something like that and you're splitting it, then it can really be.
Yeah. Your mom is going on a trip soon with, I think, a girlfriend or two. And that's just it. There's separate beds. There's separate bathrooms. It really is kind of perfect for that too.
Yeah. One question that I get a lot that I just am going to pop in here is people ask, is the pull down beds, are they comfortable? And they are. So they're not like what they used to be where they were like the 3 fold out, like kind of sofa bed kind of things. They pull down from the wall and they are the same mattresses that are on the regular beds.
It's a complete bed.
It is. And it is a flat surface underneath it. So you don't have the springs, and it's a full size mattress. So they are extremely comfortable. So don't let that be a factor in, well, I don't want somebody to have to sleep on the pull out while I get the regular bed.
It's actually a good regular
They're
mattress.
really nice beds. Yeah. Okay, so quickly, the food court situation or the food differences.
Yeah, so I just looked into it because obviously the menus change from time to time, and it's been a while since we've stayed at a few of these. So I compared all 5 menus. I first started with Pop Century, and I was like, oh, it really is mostly just like burgers, chicken strips. They had a few like a pulled pork sandwich and a few things like that, and then like salads and options like that. Then I went to Art of Animation's menu, and it was like, I'll just pull it up. I was pretty impressed. It was like seared salmon, tandoori chicken, shrimp and grits, chicken stir fry, and then they had pizza and pasta and burgers. So a lot more options. So one thing, again, like we said earlier, if you're staying at Pop Century, because it's still an awesome resort, maybe just from time to time walk over to the other quick service across the way at Art of Animation. The thing I found the most interesting as I compared these is that when I went to the All-Star menus, those are like hybrids of Pop Century and Art of Animation. They seem to have more options than Pop Century does, food-wise.
But it's so interesting because, again, depending on where you are at Pop Century, it might be closer to walk to Landscape of Flavors over at Art of Animation, just because
than
of the way
it is to walk to your own.
Because they really are so close, just right across that bridge there.
So that's really all I learned, because we did get some questions about, well, which one has the best food? Again, they're definitely making them from the same menus and stuff, and a lot of the things offered are the same at each hotel, just combined differently on the menus, I guess. But so I feel like the food generally, anywhere you get it quick service wise, tastes the same.
Yes, I would agree. So 2 other quick things that you are not going to get at a value resort, just if they are important to you. One is water slides. A lot of the deluxe resorts have water slides, and even a lot of the moderate resorts have water slides. No water slides at the parks. There's also no fitness center.
At the value resorts,
What did I?
The parks, which also no water slides there either, guys. Sorry to get your own.
And also, okay, well, I'm not going to go down that road. Anyway, so no water slides, also no fitness centers, but only some of the deluxe resorts have fitness centers. Most of them do, but that's really, and there's a few exceptions, but you're just not going to have them at the value. So if that's something important to you, just know that.
Oh, there was something else I was about to say. Oh, they all, however, have laundry facilities where you can go, and it's like, coin. Well, not really. I think you just use a card now, but they all have laundry facilities, usually near one of the pools. So that's something you can do. We've definitely done laundry at, I think, all of those. And then I remember one time Genevieve threw up. She'd had too much sugar or something when we were at Art of Animation. She threw up. We were doing laundry.
Sugar-free gummies.
Bears. We didn't know they were sugar-free, and I think it genuinely just that upset her stomach. That was a nightmare.
That was
anyway,
not a fun.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it. The family suite, because we dealt with throw up the whole time.
And that was also, I think, when Galaxy's Edge first opened, and I went over by myself one morning, and I was going to do Rise. Maybe it was when Rise first opened, like the day it opened or something like that, or right after that. So I was gone all morning, and you were stuck dealing with Genevieve being sick by yourself, and you're like, get me out of this room.
And all of them have arcades. And I had to double check that every single one of the value ones, they do have arcades. And that's so fun if you've got a kid that maybe you're doing a resort day and you're doing pool time, you're doing dinner there. It's cool to do an arcade with a kid that likes it. And they do the movies under the stars. Now, all Disney resorts do that, but I want to mention these do too. And they're so fun. They usually also do games by the pool. And those are really fun at the value resorts because there's so many kids. There's so many people there at the pool. But there's plenty of seats and places to be too. So they just do such a good job. And it's such a happy place.
A bunch of kids just shouting out like answers to
trivia, Disney songs. It's very festive, very fun.
Okay, so in a moment we're going to very, very quickly go through our rankings. If we were to rank the value resorts,
our favorite, least. Yep.
But before we do that, we're going to do our mug shots. So after you talk about your mug.
You picked this one out for me today.
I did.
Because I was finishing planning this. So it's a Small World mug with my lipstick in various locations. And it's so cute. I love how like dainty it is. I love the little swirly dirly handle. It's just got little scenes. You know what I mean? It's darling. It's one of my favorites. And it's a good size too. The coffee doesn't get too cold too fast.
Every time I fill that up for you and try and bring it to you though, I hate it because that little handle is so hard to hold.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, and then I picked our little honorable mention here, the little Fort Wilderness, which doesn't really count, but this is a Fort Wilderness.
You said
mug.
Fort Wilderness.
Well, so we had this amazing Fort Wilderness mug, and we accidentally put it in the dishwasher, and it got ruined.
In one wash, y'all.
Oh
ruined.
Gosh, so sad. So we went and bought new ones. This is the 50th anniversary one they had, and I like it a lot, but I don't like it as much as the other one. But it's got Chip and Dale on it.
I love it. It looks like a little tree stump.
It does look like a little tree stump. You are not wrong.
That's a personal fave.
Yeah. So
our ranking. Should we do least favorite to favorite?
Yes. So you do yours first. Rapid fire here.
Should have just going in order. Okay. Yeah. Least favorite, All-Star Sports. I haven't stayed, so technically it doesn't count, but I also know, So sorry, sports fans. Next up would be All-Star Music. Then All-Star Movies. Close tied almost to Pop Century. And my number one is Art of Animation. I think the pool is the coolest. The menu, now I know, is definitely the best one. Again, it's on the Skyliner. I love the running trail. You can walk to Pop Century if you want. The theming, it's just and different room options. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, wow.
Other than the flooring in the family suites.
So mine is actually very different. So mine is All-Star Sports as the last one. And again, that's more just default because we've never stayed there, so we can't really talk to that.
Yeah.
Art of Animation is my number 4. And here's why. Because like I said...
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why. You can't really compare the family suites to other values. So when you're looking at the standard Little Mermaid rooms... At all the other values, the standard rooms are so much nicer. So comparing apples to apples, the standard rooms at Art of Animation, the Little Mermaid rooms, look like the old school ones. They still have carpet, they still have whatever.
That's
fair.
Then
looking at the new rooms for the same pricing as like the Little Mermaid rooms are so much nicer.
Can I amend something then?
Yes.
If you're going for the room, Pop Century. Because I think that is the best renovation. It doesn't feel like a hospital room. And then Art of Animation for the hotel itself. So maybe that's it. You stay in a Pop Century room.
Yep.
You walk over to Art of Animation and enjoy all of that. I don't know. You can't get in the pool in theory. I think you do have to scan in your Magic Band.
Yeah, but people leave the door open. Sometimes people just go by.
Oh, my hands are full with all these mugs.
Yeah. Could you open the door for me, please? Anyway, okay. All-Star Sports, Art of Animation, All-Star Movies, All-Star Music, and All-Star Music is above only because I love the Broadway section because they're pretty similar. But
Movies has the Fantasia pool.
I know.
But music has the family suites.
And then Pop Century, hands down, number one, no question to ask. That is always when people ask me where they should stay in Walt Disney World. It's almost always Pop Century. It's on the Skyliner. It's recently renovated. It's wealthy. This is my mind.
It's wealthy with experience.
It's well themed and it's relatively inexpensive, and you get to stay on property. And you get all the benefits of staying on property at a decent price point.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah. So hands down, that is my number one.
So rapid fire, Tyler. Why? Like when you were asked, why should I stay on property at a value versus off property? Like, what are the actual benefits? And again, we could do an entire episode, so we're not going to go deep.
Yes,
but just kind of what's your elevator pitch on why they should stay on property?
Right. So specifically looking at values versus off property, because we got this question a lot. So I kind of wrote down a few notes here. So here's sort of the trajectory. It used to be super duper simple. I'm like, it is always worth it to stay on property. And again, like I said, for all these reasons, it wasn't even a question. Then it kind of went for a while. It was like, I don't know if it's worth it. I think it's still worth it, if for nothing else than being in the Disney bubble, because there's definitely something to be said about that. So it was still I leaned towards on property versus off property, but it wasn't as easy. Now, with a lot of these changes that are coming back, I'm back to saying it's probably definitely going to be worth it to stay on property. So I wrote down a few notes here. So you used to get, back when I used to say it was no questions, used to get Magical Express, which they That's a whole
That was
episode.
the bus from the airport to your Disney hotel.
And that's an episode in and of itself that I feel like we could talk about for a very long time, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. So if they replace that with something, maybe eventually, we'll see. That's the big thing. But you used to also get early fast pass booking, so 60 days out instead of 30 days out. That was a huge benefit to try and get those hard to get rides. Extra magic hours, they didn't really bring those back, and complimentary magic band. So again, these things were, it was no questions asked. Of course, it's better to stay on property. So with the new announcements, some of the things that were gone that are coming back are the dining plans, and they're just doing 2 dining plans, which I think is so smart.
Simpler.
And
Simple
I'm a big fan of the dining plans, which again, we'll do a whole episode on those, especially now that they're coming back. But they are only doing the quick service and the regular Disney dining plan. Quick note is it the least expensive way to do your food? No. But can it save you a lot of money? Yes. And so we'll get into why that maths later on. Yeah. But I like to feel like it's all inclusive. And so many people, I've had clients who were like, I don't want to go back until the dining plan comes back. People want the dining plan because they can pay for everything before they go, and they get there and
they're
it's
not feeling like they're nickel and dimed.
Yeah, which is a big problem that they used to have, then they fixed, and now it's kind of coming back. So different story for a different day. So extra magic hours are coming back. I mean, they've sort of been back for a little while. So the early theme park entry, they're not as good names as they used to be.
Didn't they call it early morning magic?
That was Disneyland. Yeah. So extra magic hours I don't think are coming back in the way that they used to be. But they now have anybody staying on property, including Value Resorts, gets into the parks 30 minutes early over people that are just coming for the day. So that's part of it. And then
so
if
you
you're
could
staying,
go straight to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And that's huge because that's one,
right.
I could talk about it all day.
Exactly. And then they're doing the evening hours too, which again, I think they just call like extra evening hours. It's just, first thing they thought about, I think.
Yeah, that works.
And that is just for deluxe resort, so we're not going to get into that. So things that have always been there that were sort of the reasons why I still think it's worth it is one of the big ones is packages. So if you are staying off property, you're paying for your hotel and you're paying for your park tickets, and everything is due in full at the time of booking for your park tickets, and they're non-refundable once they're purchased. If you stay, and that's thousands of dollars probably, depending on how big your family is and how long you're staying. So that's completely non-refundable. Versus staying on property, you can book a package, which includes your, long story short, the resort and tickets. We'll just start with that. And it's only $200 due at the time of booking for a package, and you can cancel for a refund up to 30 days prior to arrival. So if you decide, oh my gosh, we can't make it this year and we don't want to move it to next year for whatever reason, we just want to cancel it for now, you get your $200 back versus...
That's huge.
Yeah. And so
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah. So packages alone still, I think, always made it worth it to stay on property. So that's a big one. Transportation to and from the parks. We talked about that ad nauseum here, so we don't need to get back into that, but that was a big thing.
Your hotel will probably offer a shuttle. It could be at a certain time and only at certain times, and then if you want to, or if you're like renting a car, then you got to factor in parking time, and
that's all I'm getting to next.
There's so much.
So then just the big thing is staying in the Disney bubble. For so many people who go to Disney, staying in the Disney bubble is so important. It feels like you are there, like it feels like you are safe in like a warm blanket.
Disney warm cocoon.
So if you are staying off property, a couple things to keep in mind. One, are you driving down, or do you need to have a rental car? Because if you're staying at like an Airbnb or something like that, you have to factor that in. If you need to also have a rental car, there's some of your savings that are lost. You have to factor in parking at the parks, especially at Magic Kingdom, because you have to park at the Transportation and Ticket Center and then take the boat over. So you are losing a huge chunk of time.
Waiting in line for the boat.
Yeah. Versus staying, in a Disney resort, they drop you off right at the entrance to the park. So that's something you have to factor in too. And then if you are staying in a hotel that offers transportation, a lot of them don't offer transportation. So you have to factor in, Ubers or Lyfts or that kind of, so there's, again, some of your savings that you're losing. And the other part of it is if they do offer transportation, a lot of times it's not as often as what the Disney buses are going to keep, because they're going to keep going all the time, versus one of those that are off property. They might have buses, but check before you book. They might have like one bus to Magic Kingdom in the morning and one bus back at the end of the day. So you might
they might end it earlier than when you're doing the second showing of Fantasmic and it's too late for your shuttle or whatever.
Exactly. Now some of them do offer more. So again, it's because there's so many good neighbor hotels, it's hard to clump them all together. But just something to factor in. So a lot of these things, like I'm saving money on the room rate, but then you have to factor in your time and all these other extra added expenses.
Yeah.
And then the one final big thing with dining plan, I know I'm trying to get through this fast, but
I
there's a lot of information.
thinking we should have just done a separate episode because this is
Well, so the last piece though is with the Disney dining plan coming back, if they offer free dining, which no telling, they could maybe never offer free dining again. But if they do, you have to be on Walt Disney World property to take advantage of the Disney dining plan. But if they offer it for free, obviously you can't get that unless you're staying on property. So that's another...
the whole thing, right?
Yeah. So that's my little quick elevator pitch of why I still think it's worth it to stay on property. But that was one of the biggest questions we got. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that.
All right. We have a date tonight, and our babysitter's going to be here in 30 minutes. So I'm like watching the clock. I'm like, I need to get changed. So I'm like, all right, come on, guys.
All right.
So user questions. Most of them we've already answered intentionally because we saw that a lot of people were asking the same ones. But there were a few that kind of stood out that we can quickly answer. And then we want to share some of your guys' favorites. So Catherine asked, how do we get rooms closer to the main building versus being so far at the edge of the property? So that is when you are booking your room. They usually have standard rooms and preferred rooms. You want the preferred room. That's what that means. So then you can say, I'm hoping to be closer to the whatever. Nothing's guaranteed, but that is how you do it. So it does cost more. But if it's worth it to you to not have to walk really far to the bus stop and back, or to the lobby to get your coffee in the morning and back, or to the pool, that's what you would need to book, is a preferred room. Now,
the alternative to that, if you don't want to spend any more money, it's not guaranteed, but you can call before you arrive and ask to be close to, you could be asked to be in a specific building, you could ask to be in a specific view or a certain area, or you can book through a Walt Disney World travel agent, and they can call for you and put that note on there for you. And a lot of times we'll call well in advance of your arrival, so that if they're factoring in, okay, this person requested this way earlier, when they're actually blocking rooms and putting people in there, they might take that into consideration, that it was something much earlier.
I'm laughing because it just feels like you're suddenly talking so much faster.
Well, because what you just said, we have a date.
Okay. All right. Gourmetgan. I get it. That's funny. Okay. I've always heard value resorts are loud and not restful. True?
I have not experienced that personally. If you are averse to that, ask to not face the pool.
Yeah, that's
a big thing. But they do have quieter areas, so you can definitely, again, request a quiet area of the hotel. You might be facing a parking lot, you might be facing some greenery area. So it depends on where you are in the resort, but it also depends, like I said, I think if you're All-Star Sports, you're going to get a lot more teams and things like that. So that's something to kind of factor in too.
And the other thing is that I've realized it really doesn't matter. You don't have like a balcony in these rooms at values. We should have mentioned that. Well, here we are mentioning it. So what you're facing doesn't matter if you're worried about like, oh, I don't want to face a parking lot. It doesn't really matter because you're entering all of the value resorts other than the family suites at Art of Animation. All of them have an outside entrance and just like the one window. So you probably have the curtains drawn anyway because people walk right by it, can see right in. So your view when you're staying at a value really doesn't matter. It really should be more based on, do you want to be in a quieter area? Do you want to be closer to the pool, etc.?
And they do have hours on the pool. So like you're not going to hear a bunch of noise overnight, a bunch of people in the pool or anything.
Ruru says, are they less clean than the moderate and deluxe resorts? No.
Definitely not.
Same cleanliness level.
Yeah. And truly. Again, that's one of the biggest benefits is I know if I recommend a Disney resort hotel, I have no doubt in my mind that people are going to like it because I know that Disney's going to take care of it. Everything's going to be well maintained. If you have an issue of something, they're going to come out and fix it. It's going to be clean.
Haley said, I noticed the food at values were very poor compared to moderate and deluxe. Is this true? I think that used to be true. I know I've said it like twice, so this makes it a third time. I really feel like Disney must have changed something years ago where everything really does feel like it's the same. Now that can be good or bad depending on what, if you were hoping like, oh, this one is better. But I'm telling you guys, the food is the same food. Like you're getting the Mickey waffles at one place, it is exactly the same at all of the places. Yeah. So
whether you're eating at Ohana or whether you're eating in your food court.
And we have tested it all. They are the same.
And here's the other kind of thing is how often are you planning on eating at your resort? Are you going to have 3 meals a day at your resort? Are you going to have breakfast and dinner at your resort? I mean, knowing Disney, you're probably going to be eating in the parks. You're probably going to be eating at Disney Springs, doing other things. So that is a factor, but you're probably at most, for most people, eating 1 meal a day there. Maybe a quick breakfast, something like that. So,
and one thing I did read was people were saying the food options at the food courts, it feels like there's something for everyone. And I do agree with that. I feel like sometimes when we'll stay at like a deluxe and go to their quick service, it's never as flushed out. There's never as many options because they do have other dining options. But of course, those other dining options are more expensive. So there is something to be said for having a lot more options in the food court. And there's always the grab and go stuff too, grab and go sections of like Uncrustables for your kid or juice or little things of wine, whatever your poison is. All right. So T asks, sorry, I'm taking screenshots of these. Do they have free activities like the schedule we showed in our last vlog at Saratoga Springs? Yes. So they do still do the movies under the stars. They have the pool games, where they'll do trivia and music trivia. They do a lot of those things, you guys. And in some ways, I feel like the values have even more going on because they have so many families there. And it always just feels like a very festive atmosphere. And that is something I love about it. Like when we've stayed at the Grand Floridian, we love it. Trust me. But there is something we miss about the festivities going on at all times at like the All-Stars and the Pop Century, etc. All right. So we also asked you guys on our Instagram, which is at Disneyville Podcast, which is where we got the question. So we also asked, what are some of your favorite things about I keep saying the All-Stars.
The values.
The values and like any happy memories, etc. So Bailey, who is one of your agents, said, Pop Century vibes, need I say more? So true. Like a lot of people were saying they love walking through the decades, just like walking around the resort, whether you're staying there or not, because it really is cool to see all of the different things that represent, like the 80s area is so fun. There's like a Rubik's Cube and all kinds of stuff like that. Like,
okay, so Arlena, who is also one of the agents, she said, can't beat the new Pop Century rooms with access to the Skyliner. Such a good deal. It's such a good deal. They're so good.
Liney Loves Lacquer said, the food court have so many options. Yes, like I just talked about. I think that was the one that inspired me to talk about that. And Kendra said, at Art of Animation, the seagulls near the Nemo area by the main pool say, mine, mine, mine.
That's right.
That's so fun.
Love Always Joanne said, last year, first time at All-Star Movies, my boys loved it. Thank you, Arlena. Theming is everything.
Yeah, that's so true. All-Star Sports. I love this. Kelsey Doll said, All-Star Sports over the other ones because you're the first on and off the bus.
That's true. Yeah.
So when they're sharing the route, that you would be the first one.
And sometimes at All-Star Sports, it will fill up and they'll just skip. Like if you're going to the parks, they'll skip the other two because it's already full.
It's like they need just a separate bus to send. Yeah. Can Make It Up says the smell of the Pop and Art of Animation lobbies. A lot of you guys mentioned the smell. It smells so good. There is something, I don't know what it is, the smell. Obviously, they're pumping it in there, but it's like magic. It smells like magic.
It does. It does. It gives me, and again, because we stated the values so often early on, like it gives me all the nostalgia.
Yeah, it really does. I'm really dying to go stay at one now because just talking about it is like reigniting my love. Mariah Miracle, I hope I said that right, said the Sorcerer Mickey pool is amazing. Mm-hmm. Yes. One of the highlights of my son's first visit. So again, that one's at Amazon. I was going to say Amazon Music. What am I talking about? That one is at All-Star.
We're losing it.
Movies.
Okay. AJC Admus
I hate this.
Pop has the running trail, Skyliner, and access to so many other resorts.
Yep. Kaylee Hand said, Pop Century feels so 90s nostalgic. It really does. The waffle fries are so crispy. Ooh. And she loves the gift shop. Yeah, me too. Krista Pickle said, we love to watch the movies playing in the lobby at All-Star Movies. So I feel like all of them have like a little section where they're playing movies and like they have little chairs for like the kids to sit in while you're checking in or just whenever, I guess. So I love that. I can picture that area.
Holly W. Morrow 1 said the theming is on point. Some of the only resorts that give you that true Disney childhood feel.
Yep.
That's it.
Couldn't have said it better. I mean, and so many of you guys are saying that same thing. If you are wanting that, you want to stay at a value resort because the other ones won't give you that. I love them all for different reasons, and we will touch on them in the next episodes, but there is something to that.
So the Book Heart Project, who also they have a YouTube channel. Actually, we've seen them a couple times in the parks as well. Said Peter's first Walt Disney World stay was Pop Century. The gift shop brought him so much joy. He just wanted to stay for our whole arrival day when Disney Springs was our plan.
That is so cute. I love that. This one, Ellie Morley said, cast members doing a dance party line every morning at All-Star Movies. I've never seen that. That sounds cool.
I love that.
Have you guys seen the cast members? I've seen them in multiple parks do it. I've seen it most recently at Epcot where they'll have like a square on the ground and cheer anytime someone steps in that square, and there'll be like 3 of them. Have you seen them do this?
No.
It might have been when you were doing trainings and stuff. I was with the Nanas. We were cracking up, and the kids around loved it. They'd just go stand in the square, and the 4 cast members would clap for them and cheer, and it was so cute. So it just reminds me of that.
Our Power 029 said the renovations have been fantastic and make it feel less value-y. Yes, that's the thing. And then we have a lot of really good ones here. Again, no one's given me a really good idea of a way to spread these out because there's so many good ones that I want to share.
I know.
So Mrs. Calabrese said they're underrated. If priority is parks, spend less for the room, and it's still fire because it's Disney.
Because it's Disney.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's still a Disney resort. It's so well done. So we're going to end that there. We do want to share. I know, so many, you guys, which is an awesome problem to have. So we want to share a review from one of you guys. So if you have not yet reviewed us and you like our podcast, we would love for you to review us. This is over on Apple Podcasts. I don't know if you can leave reviews on Spotify. If you can, please do.
I think you can do a star rating, but not a written review, if I remember right.
So this review comes from Care Bear 1025. So she, like your Disney BFFs, Tyler and Jessica are a staple in our house when it comes to YouTube and all of their knowledge on Disney. This podcast has been so helpful as we are planning our first Disney trip. For September. Oh my gosh. There's something magical about their love of the history of Disney paired with the current day magic that makes it different from other podcasts. That's so nice. I always learn something new and I always look forward to adding things to our Disney list. Highly recommend this podcast. Thank you so much, awesome. Care Bear. That was so nice. So that's it.
Yeah.
Our sitter's going to be here soon, guys.
What's
we
funny,
did it.
We could have talked about this for another hour, but it was almost a good thing that we had this deadline because if we would have, this would have been a 2-hour podcast.
You guys, this was my favorite episode so far to film. And again, we keep saying that every time, but it was. This was the most fun to me. It was just so fun. Yeah. Like you said, we've been preparing for like 10 to 15 years for this. Yeah,
honestly, yeah.
Like we have way too much knowledge of the value resort, of all of the resorts really. So much fun. Next time we're going to do the moderate resorts.
And then we're going to do...
there's a lot to break down there.
Yes. And then we're going to do deluxe resorts. And then we have a weird episode that I'm excited about.
Weird. I'm actually really excited about that one too. So stay tuned. Love you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Opposite. All right.
Bye.
Bye.